Division of operating expenses. As you have seen, the operating expenses are the most important part of the profit and loss statement that in most cases decides about the profitability of the business. So we'll have a look at how the cost can be divided, and we'll try to later on analyze them in more details. So let's start by discussing two general ways in which you can divide the operational expenses and present them obviously to the board management and shareholders. So first way to do that is by type, and the second one is by stages. In the division by type, you simply look at what type of a cost it is and you disregard where it appears. And there are 8 main categories we're going to discuss in a minute. So as an example, when we look at the labor costs, so personal costs, people, we don't care whether it's a production person or a salesman or a director, we put all of them in one basket. By stages, you do exactly the opposite thing. So you are more concerned about where they occur, where they are created, than what type of cost it is. So you would put the labor devoted to selling in a different basket than the labor devoted to production. In this lecture, we'll discuss the 8 main categories of costs, and later on we'll do exactly the same thing for the cost by stages. Let's have a look how we would divide costs by types. So if we look at the operational expenses, we could divide them in the following manner. So we could first of all name the materials, energy and utilities. So here we have everything you need to produce the product you are selling. Then obviously we need people, so we would have labor and payroll costs. And sometimes as a separate category, you've got related to them social security and other employee benefits. In some countries they are put into one basket, but quite often there are 2 separate things. The reason to put them into 2 separate baskets would be the fact that labor you pay to the people and the social security in many countries you pay to the state. The 4th category is called external services. So here we would have all the services we buy from other companies. So it can be, for example, rent, it can be maintenance services, it may be software, it might be consulting and things like this. You see quite often move from labor to external services. So for example, you might decide to outsource part of your people, and this would mean that the labor would go down, but actually the external services would go up. So you always have to make sure that when you're comparing companies, they're comparable in terms of the operational model. The next category is called depreciation and amortization. We'll discuss this in details later on, but in short, we can say that this cost is supposed to reflect the usage of fixed assets like cars, like machines, equipment. So in a sense, it's reflecting a portion of the value of those fixed assets that is being destroyed because we use it. In other words, this cost represents the usage of fixed assets. We sometimes are selling goods that were not produced by us, or we might be actually selling materials that we are not able to use. And in this case, we would have a separate category which is called cost or value of goods and materials sold. And here we would put all the things expressed in the price we paid for them. This part is obviously huge for retailers. They would not be producing much, so they would not have materials and energy, but they would have plenty of things they buy from one company to sell it to another one. We have also something which is called tax and charges. Be aware that here we don't mean the income tax, we mean rather local taxes and some charges that the company has to bear. And finally, obviously, we have other costs where we put everything which does not fit into these categories. As you can see, it's very clear. We don't know where a specific cost appears, but we know what type of cost it is. This type of analysis is extremely popular in Europe, and many companies are presenting the data in this way. And it helps you readily to understand what drives the cost, because you see which element you should concentrate on in order to improve the operational profit. Let's move on to the second way of dividing costs.